First time Chloe and Alexander meet at a local coffee shop. It's a busy afternoon, and the bustling sounds of chatter and clinking cups fill the air. Chloe is seated at a corner table, quietly sipping her coffee and reading a book. Alexander, a little flustered, is standing in line for his coffee, when he accidentally bumps into her chair. Alexander, voiceover, amused. I didn't expect my day to change with a simple accident. I thought I'd just apologize and move on, but something about her smile stopped me in my tracks. Chloe looks up, not irritated but amused, raising an eyebrow. Chloe, laughing, voiceover. I wasn't even mad. I mean, it happens. But when I saw him there, apologizing with this nervous energy, I couldn't help but laugh. Alexander stammers an apology, and they end up talking about their favorite books, their shared love for food, and an easy, natural connection forms. The scene ends with a shot of Alexander helping Chloe into her car, both laughing as they head out on their first adventure together. Chloe and Alexander are preparing to head out on a weekend adventure. The sun is shining and there's a gentle breeze. They decide to visit a local farmer's market, a place they both enjoy for the fresh produce and unique finds. The camera follows them as they navigate the crowded market. Alexander gently pushes Chloe's wheelchair, weaving around busy shoppers. Alexander, voiceover, fondly. We've been through a lot together. The things we do now, grocery shopping, taking long walks, cooking meals, it feels ordinary. But nothing with her is really ordinary. She has this way of making the everyday moments feel extraordinary. Chloe stops at a booth selling fresh herbs, and her eyes light up. Alexander smiles, watching her excitement as she reaches out to smell the basil. Chloe, voiceover, softly. I never thought I'd find someone who could make life feel so full. Alexander isn't just my partner in the kitchen or my arms in places I can't reach, he's my partner in life. He's the reason I feel like I can do anything. Later that evening, they are back at home in the kitchen. Alexander is chopping vegetables, and Chloe is carefully guiding him through the steps of a new recipe they've decided to try together. The camera focuses on their playful interactions as they pass ingredients back and forth, laughing over spilled flour and the occasional kitchen mishap. Alexander, voiceover, playfully. She's the chef. I'm the sous chef, mostly for moral support. I've learned how to cook, but I'm always better when I'm cooking with her. Chloe gives him a playful look, the warmth between them radiating through the scene. Chloe, laughing, voiceover. He's a great cook, but he'll never admit it. Every dish is just okay. But I know better. I love the way we make meals together. It's our thing. Alexander, voiceover, tenderly. People always talk about what love should look like. But with Chloe, I don't need to see love in a particular way. It's in the way she smiles at me when I make her laugh, in the quiet moments where we don't need to say anything. It's just her. Chloe looks at him with affection, her hand resting in his. Chloe, smiling, voiceover. Love isn't just the big moments. It's the tiny moments, the ones we create every day. With Alexander, I know I'm seen for who I really am, wheelchair and all. And that's more than I ever expected. The next morning they are out on a walk, taking a leisurely stroll through the park. Suddenly, Chloe's wheelchair hits a crack in the sidewalk, and she struggles to regain balance. Alexander immediately stops and gently helps her back into a safe position. Alexander, voiceover, determined. Some days are harder than others. But every time I see her face, I remember why we keep pushing forward. Together, we can handle anything. Chloe smiles at him, grateful for his steady presence, and they continue walking, their bond stronger than any challenge they face. Chloe, voiceover, warmly. Life might not always be easy, but with Alexander by my side, it's always worth it. The music swells softly, ending with a shot of them laughing together in the kitchen, their love and connection clear as ever. A few weeks later, the couple faces a new challenge. Alexander is at work when Chloe receives a call from her doctor, letting her know that there's a change in her health. The news is unsettling, and the camera lingers on her face as she processes the information. Chloe, voiceover, thoughtful. Sometimes it feels like life throws these curveballs, things you can't control. But it's not the challenges that define us. It's how we face them together. Later that evening, Alexander comes home to find her sitting quietly on the couch, her expression serious. Alexander concerned. "Hey, what's going on?" Chloe looks up at him, her face both tired and resolute. She tells him about the doctor's call, about how the change in her health might mean more frequent doctor visits, more physical therapy, and perhaps even a change in the way they approach their daily life. Alexander softly, "We'll figure this out. You don't have to carry this alone." Chloe smiles faintly, grateful for his unwavering support. The weight of the news doesn't seem as heavy with him by her side. Chloe quietly, "I know. I don't know what I would do without you." As they walk, they encounter an elderly neighbor, Mrs. Harris, who is out for her evening stroll. She waves and they stop to chat. Mrs. Harris, who has known them for a while, shares stories of her own struggles and the importance of leaning on others during hard times. Mrs. Harris, smiling warmly, "You two have something special. Just remember, it's okay to ask for help. And it's okay to have bad days too. Life isn't perfect, but it's all about finding those moments of grace in the mess." Chloe and Alexander exchange a look, feeling comforted by her words. Alexander, voiceover inspired. "Sometimes the people around you, people you don't expect, can remind you that you're not alone. That no matter how hard things get, there's always a way forward." A few weeks later, Chloe and Alexander are sitting on the couch, just the two of them watching a movie. It's one of those quiet nights that's simply about being together. Their life is still full of challenges, but the bond between them has only grown stronger. Chloe, voiceover reflective, "We don't always know what the future holds. But I've learned that as long as we're together, I'm not afraid of anything. This love, this life, it's ours. And that's enough." To lift her spirits after the challenges they've faced, Alexander plans a small surprise celebration for Chloe, a dinner party with close friends and family. He knows how much she loves to cook, but he also wants to make her feel special in a way that shows how much he appreciates everything she does. The evening is filled with laughter, delicious food, and heartfelt toasts. Chloe's friends share stories of how she has inspired them with her strength and resilience, while Alexander gives a heartfelt speech. Alexander, to the group, smiling at Chloe, "I don't say it enough, but Chloe, you are my hero. Every day you show me what strength and love really mean. I'm so lucky to share this life with you." Chloe is overwhelmed with emotion, blinking back tears. She stands and gives him a tight hug, her voice soft. Chloe whispering, "You make me feel like I can do anything. Thank you for always being my strength when I need it most." As the party winds down, the couple finds a moment alone on their balcony once more, watching the stars. They sit side by side, the city lights glowing beneath them, a sense of calm settling between them. Alexander, voiceover tender, "I used to think love was about grand gestures and big moments. But now I know it's the little things. It's the quiet nights." A shared smiles. The promise to always show up for each other, no matter what. Chloe leans her head on his shoulder, her fingers intertwined with his. Chloe, voiceover content, "Life may not always go as planned, but with you, I know we're going to be just fine. Together, we've got this." Chloe sat on the edge of the couch, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug absent-mindedly. Alexander, across from her, adjusted his position, his wheelchair creaking slightly as he leaned back. The room was quiet, save for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional rustle of a page turning from the book he had been reading earlier. "I hate how we always have to think ahead when we go anywhere," Chloe said, her voice almost a whisper. "Like, is there an elevator? Are the doors wide enough? Can you even get in?" She exhaled slowly, her frustration lingering in the air. Alexander nodded, his expression softened by understanding. "Yeah. It's like we're always one step ahead, trying to anticipate the worst. It's exhausting sometimes." Chloe sighed and shifted closer to him, her legs tucked under her. She had always admired how Alexander never let his disability define him, but she knew that there were days when it wore him down. "Do you ever feel invisible?" she asked quietly, her eyes meeting his. "Like when we're out and things aren't accessible, it's as if people forget you're even there?" Alexander's gaze softened as he met her eyes. "Sometimes. More often than I'd like to admit." He paused, his hands resting lightly on the wheels of his chair. "But then I think about you. I think about how, despite everything, we're still here. You see me, not my wheelchair. And that matters more than any of the struggles we face outside this apartment." Chloe's heart clenched at his words. She reached out, brushing his hand gently. "I don't just see you, Alexander. I see your strength, your wit, your kindness. I see everything about you, not just the challenges you face. We face them together. And that's all that matters." A soft, knowing smile curled at the corner of his lips. "You know, sometimes it's not even about the places that aren't accessible. It's about how people look at me. I wish they could understand that my life isn't defined by this chair. That I don't need pity. I need respect. I want to live, to experience life fully, just like anyone else." Chloe squeezed his hand, her eyes full of tenderness. "I know. I hate how the world can be so narrow-minded. But you and we've learned to navigate those spaces together. We're not just going to let this world limit us, are we?" "No," Alexander said firmly, his voice steady. "We're not. We're going to keep pushing forward. Maybe it'll take time for people to catch up, but we'll keep going." Chloe leaned in closer, resting her head on his shoulder. "I love you, Alexander. You're everything to me, beyond anything physical. You make me better just by being who you are." Alexander chuckled softly, his hand reaching up to gently brush a strand of hair from her face. "And I love you, more than you'll ever know. You make me feel normal. You remind me every day that I'm not defined by my wheelchair." They sat in comfortable silence for a few moments, the bond between them growing stronger with each passing second. In their own little world, none of the external struggles seemed to matter as much. Their connection, the way they supported and understood each other, was more than enough to overcome any barrier life could throw their way. Chloe closed her eyes and smiled. "You know, we've got a lot of dreams, you and me. We're going to travel, see the world. We'll find the places that do understand us, the places where people see us as we are, not as our limitations." Alexander grinned. "I can't wait for that. Just the two of us, no restrictions. We'll create our own path, no matter what it takes." Their hands intertwined as they sat there, holding on to each other tightly, finding peace in the knowledge that, no matter the challenges ahead, they would always have each other. And together they were unstoppable. Chloe was thrilled when she received the invitation to the prestigious art event, an event that everyone in the art world seemed to be buzzing about. It was going to be a night filled with creative minds, beautiful artwork, and influential people. But when she read the details, a wave of concern hit her. The venue wasn't wheelchair accessible. She had always wanted to attend this event, but how could she, if she couldn't even get inside? Her mind raced with 1,000 questions, and that's when Alexander noticed the sudden change in her expression. He walked over, sensing her unease, and sat beside her. "What's going on, Chloe?" he asked gently, his voice steady and calm. "It's this art event I got invited to, but the venue isn't wheelchair accessible. How am I supposed to get in?" "What if it's too difficult?" she admitted, her voice tinged with frustration. Alexander thought for a moment and then smiled, his usual optimism shining through. "We've faced challenges before, Chloe. We'll figure this one out together, just like we always do." With Alexander's encouragement, they decided to take action. First, they contacted the event organizers. They explained the situation, hoping there might be a solution they hadn't thought of. The organizers were quick to respond, apologizing for the oversight and offering a potential workaround. There was an alternative entrance at the back of the building, one with a ramp for wheelchair access. However, it would require a little extra time and a bit of coordination to ensure that everything went smoothly. "We're in this together, every step of the way," Alexander assured her. He promised to help navigate the venue and make sure everything was set up so there would be no surprises. The day of the event arrived, and as they approached the venue, there was a slight nervousness in the air. The building loomed large, with its impressive facade and crowd of elegantly dressed guests entering through the front. But Chloe felt a spark of hope when she saw the back entrance, a quiet, less traveled path that led up to the ramp. Alexander helped guide her carefully up the ramp, her wheelchair gliding smoothly over the surface. There was a sense of triumph in that moment, a feeling of overcoming an obstacle not just physically, but with persistence and teamwork. As they entered the venue, the sounds of chatter and clinking glasses filled the air, and the vibrant colors of the artwork on display instantly lifted Chloe's spirits. Inside, the event was everything she had imagined. The walls were lined with paintings, sculptures, and installations that spoke to her creative soul. She marveled at the masterpieces, excited to engage in conversations with artists and admirers alike. Alexander, always by her side, made sure she was comfortable and included in every aspect of the evening. They met a few fellow art enthusiasts and exchanged insights about the pieces on display. It felt like a perfect night, a reminder that no challenge was insurmountable when they worked together. As they left the venue later that night, the two of them paused at the same ramp they had arrived on. Chloe looked at Alexander, a soft smile on her face. "Thank you for making this possible. I never would have thought it could work out this way." Alexander grinned, his eyes sparkling with affection. "We make a great team, don't we? Whatever the challenge, we'll always find a way." And with that, they walked off into the night, knowing that their bond was stronger than any obstacle they faced. As the wedding reception carried on, Chloe could feel the weight of the awkwardness in the air. The guests around her were kind, but there was an underlying discomfort that was hard to ignore. She could see them stealing glances her way, unsure of how to approach or what to say. It wasn't their fault. She thought many had never known someone with a disability before. But the subtle distancing was still painful. Chloe had tried to brush it off, but when Jasper, Alexander's younger brother, made a comment about the difficulties of dating someone in a wheelchair, the tension in the room became impossible to ignore. "Must be tough, right?" Jasper chuckled nervously, taking a sip of his drink. "I mean, I can't imagine trying to date someone who needs all that extra attention. Must complicate things." His words hung in the air like a heavy mist, and Chloe's heart sank. She could feel the heat rising in her cheeks, and her hands tightened on the armrests of her chair. Alexander's face darkened instantly, his hand reaching for Chloe's. "Jasper, that's not funny," he said, his voice calm but firm. "You have no idea what it's like to walk a day in Chloe's shoes." The room fell silent as everyone waited for Jasper to react. His face reddened, his attempt at humor now clearly fallen flat. Sorry, I didn't mean." Alexander interrupted him. "It doesn't matter. It's not a joke, Jasper. Dating someone with a disability isn't about extra attention. It's about love, respect, and understanding. And you need to learn to do that, especially if you're going to be a part of our lives." Jasper muttered something under his breath and walked away, leaving a lingering unease in his wake. Chloe smiled weakly at Alexander. "Thank you," she whispered. "I know you didn't have to do that." Alexander squeezed her hand. "I'll always defend you. Always." But there was an edge to his voice that hadn't been there before. It wasn't just the confrontation with Jasper that upset him, it was the constant battle they faced in trying to make people see their love without the filters of pity or misunderstanding. Later, after the wedding had wound down and the last of the guests had gone home, Alexander and Chloe sat together in a quiet corner of the venue, away from the lingering noise of music and laughter. Alexander's arm was around her shoulders as they watched the stars through the large window. "You know," Chloe began, breaking the silence, "sometimes I just wish people would see us as normal. Not us with the wheelchair, and him with the saintly patience. Just us." Alexander turned to her, his eyes soft. "I know what you mean. Feels like we're always proving ourselves. Proving that we're capable of the same things anyone else is. proving that our love is real, that it's not some charity case. That's exhausting. Chloe rested her head on his shoulder. I get tired of explaining things over and over. Every time someone makes a comment or asks a question about what I can and can't do. It's like I'm having to remind myself of who I am all over again. Alexander kissed the top of her head. We don't have to explain ourselves to anyone but each other. I know who you are and I love you. That's all that matters to me. She smiled, a genuine warmth filling her chest. I love you too. Alexander sighed, pulling her closer. I just wish it was easier. Sometimes I think if we didn't have to face those moments, if people could just see past all the labels, maybe it wouldn't feel like a fight every day. Chloe took a deep breath, contemplating his words. But maybe those fights are worth it. Because every time we face them we get stronger. And we're teaching people something even if they don't always realize it. We're showing them that love isn't defined by limitations. Alexander smiled softly, the tension in his shoulders easing as he looked at her. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it's worth it. He reached for her hand, threading their fingers together. As long as we're together, we'll get through anything. One awkward moment at a time. Chloe sat on the couch, her leg propped up with pillows, staring out the window as the sun dipped below the horizon. She could hear Alexander pacing in the other room, the soft click of his shoes on the hardwood floor betraying his unease. It had been 2 weeks since her injury, but the sense of frustration had only deepened, as though time itself was dragging, heavy with the uncertainty of how long this setback would last. She hated this feeling vulnerable, reliant on others for even the smallest tasks. She was used to being the one who held it all together, not the one who needed help. The very idea that Alexander might see her as weak, less capable, gnawed at her insides. She heard Alexander stop in the doorway. His voice soft but full of concern. Chloe, I made dinner. I thought maybe you could eat something. She gave a tight smile, glancing up at him briefly. I'm not hungry. Alexander frowned, stepping further into the room. Chloe, you've barely eaten all day. You've got to take care of yourself. The irritation bubbled up before she could stop it. I'm fine, Alexander. I'm just not hungry. Alexander's face softened, though there was a flicker of frustration behind his eyes. He crossed the room slowly, crouching down in front of her. I know you don't like asking for help, but you've got to let me be there for you. Chloe swallowed hard, fighting the tears threatening to spill. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want you to see me as someone broken. Alexander reached out, gently lifting her chin to meet his gaze. His voice was steady, full of reassurance. You're not broken, Chloe. You're stronger than anyone I know. This doesn't change who you are to me. She shook her head, trying to look away, but his hand on her chin kept her from turning. I don't want you to see me as someone who needs help all the time. I don't, he said softly. I see you as someone who's going through something difficult right now. And that's why I'm here. Not because I feel sorry for you, but because I love you and I want to help you get through this. Chloe's breath caught in her throat. She had known that Alexander loved her, but hearing it spoken so openly without any hint of pity brought her comfort and a deep sense of relief. But I don't want you to have to take care of me, she whispered, her voice shaky. I don't want you to think I'm weak. Alexander leaned in, his forehead gently resting against hers. You're not weak, sophomore. I know you're used to being strong, but sometimes strength comes in letting someone else help you. Takes courage to accept support when you need it. And I admire you for that more than you know. Chloe closed her eyes, letting the warmth of his words settle in her chest. For the first time in what felt like forever, she allowed herself to lean into him, to accept the comfort he offered without pushing it away. They sat there in silence for a long moment, just breathing in the quiet intimacy that surrounded them. Finally, she spoke again, her voice softer, more vulnerable than before. I just don't want to feel like I'm a burden to you. Alexander's hands cupped her face, and he looked at her with unwavering sincerity. You're never a burden to me, Chloe. You never will be. You're my partner, my equal. And no amount of temporary setbacks will change that. Tears welled up in her eyes, not from frustration or pain, but from the overwhelming sense of love and understanding that filled the room. She had always feared that her vulnerabilities would drive a wedge between them, but in that moment, she realized that it was those very vulnerabilities that had deepened their bond. Alexander gently wiped a tear away from her cheek, his thumb grazing her skin tenderly. "We'll get through this together, okay?" Chloe nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. Together. As they sat there, wrapped in the quiet certainty of their connection, Chloe felt something shift within her. Maybe she didn't have to do everything on her own. Maybe, just maybe, it was okay to let someone in fully, both in the moments of strength and the moments of weakness. And with Alexander by her side, she knew she could face whatever came next. Chloe and Alexander's shared mission of advocating for better accessibility in their city became a journey of both growth and struggle. Every town meeting they attended felt like a battleground. The well-worn wooden chairs in the town hall creaked beneath them as they sat together, scanning the room for any opportunity to speak up. Chloe, always the more outspoken of the two, found herself uncomfortable under the intense scrutiny of the audience. She knew that every word she said could be misinterpreted or dismissed. Alexander, on the other hand, had always been more introverted and hesitant around authority figures, especially when it felt like they weren't listening. But despite their differences, they found strength in each other. The night before a particularly important meeting, Chloe noticed Alexander pacing nervously in their living room, his usual calm demeanor replaced with anxiety. "Hey, you've got this," she said softly, offering a comforting smile. "You've been preparing for this. We've been preparing for this. And I believe in you." Alexander paused, his eyes locking with hers. "I just don't want to screw it up. What if they don't listen? What if we're just wasting our time?" Chloe gently took his hands in hers. "Even if we change just one person's mind, we'll have made a difference. You have every right to be here and speak up. Don't let fear hold you back." The following morning, as they entered the meeting room, Alexander's heart raced. His palms were sweaty, but he felt an unexpected sense of calm after their conversation. He spoke up, his voice quiet at first, but steady as he addressed the crowd. "We're not just asking for ramps or wider doorways," he began. "We're asking for a city that works for everyone. No one should be left behind. That includes us, and it includes all of you." The room was silent for a long moment, and for a second, Alexander felt his words hang in the air. But then a hand shot up from the back of the room. An older woman with a cane stood up and nodded. "I agree," she said, her voice firm. "I've been waiting for someone to say this." The applause that followed wasn't thunderous, but it was enough. Alexander looked over at Chloe, who was smiling proudly, her eyes glistening with pride. But even as their efforts began to show small signs of progress, frustrations bubbled up. Not all businesses were eager to make changes, and the city council was slow to respond to the campaign. They encountered resistance everywhere they turned. "It's going to take time," Chloe often reminded him. "Change isn't easy, and it's never quick. But it's worth it." One evening, after another disappointing meeting with local businesses that refused to improve their accessibility features, Chloe found herself overwhelmed. "Why is it so hard for people to just see the need?" she vented, slumping into a chair at their apartment. "It shouldn't be this difficult." Alexander, ever the optimist, joined her on the couch. "We're doing the right thing," he said, gently taking her hand. "Yes, it's frustrating. But these little steps we're taking, they matter. They will make a difference." Chloe let out a heavy sigh. "I know. I wish people would understand faster. I wish we could make a bigger impact already." Alexander thought for a moment before responding. "Maybe it's not about making the biggest impact right away. Maybe it's about planting the seeds, making people think about things in a different way. And that takes time." Despite the setbacks, they refused to give up. As their campaign continued, they began to realize that their work wasn't just about advocating for physical accessibility, It was about changing attitudes, too. The more they spoke, the more people started to listen. Some were skeptical at first, but even they couldn't deny the passion and persistence of the couple. Together, they learned to be patient with both the process and with themselves. The journey wasn't just about advocating for a cause. It was about growing as individuals and as a team, each of them helping the other overcome personal obstacles, whether that was Chloe's fear of speaking in front of large crowds or Alexander's nervousness around confrontations. As their campaign continued to gain traction, Chloe and Alexander started to dream bigger. What if they could create a coalition of like-minded people? What if their small city could be a model for others, a beacon of accessibility and inclusivity? The couple knew they had a long road ahead of them, but they also knew they would walk it together, side by side. And in the quiet moments when the weight of the task felt heavy, they would always remind each other, "We're in this together, and together we can make a difference." As the soft waves lapped gently at the shore, the golden hues of the setting sun cast a warm glow across the beach. Alexander and Chloe sat side by side, the rhythmic sound of the ocean harmonizing with the quiet moments they shared. Alexander, always perceptive to Chloe's needs, had taken extra care to ensure that the beach was more than just a dream. It was a place where they could truly experience the beauty of nature together. The specially designed accessible pathways allowed Chloe to glide her wheelchair along the shore with ease, the sand warm beneath her as the wind tousled her hair. Chloe took a deep breath, feeling the ocean breeze against her skin, and smiled at Alexander, her eyes softening. "I never thought I'd be able to experience this," she said quietly, her voice full of wonder. "I've always wanted to feel the ocean like this, to be free in it. And you made it happen." Alexander squeezed her hand gently, his gaze filled with affection. "You deserve it all, Chloe. Every moment. I want to show you that no matter the challenges, there's always a way. We just need to find it together." The evening sky deepened into shades of purple and pink, the sun dipping lower and casting long shadows on the sand. They continued their quiet stroll, with Alexander pushing Chloe's wheelchair slowly along the beach, the weight of years of struggles and triumphs sinking in. They spoke about how they had learned to adapt to their new realities over time. There had been moments of doubt, times when it seemed like the world was pulling them apart, but they never gave up on each other. They had learned to lean into their love, adapting their lives and finding new ways to share their dreams and experiences. "I still remember the first time we went out, when I had so many worries," Chloe said, looking out at the horizon. "I didn't know if you'd be patient enough to deal with all my health concerns. But you always are." Alexander smiled, pushing the wheels gently as they rolled along the beach. "I knew then, even when things were uncertain, that it wasn't about the perfect moments or the smooth paths. It was about being there for each other no matter what." Chloe's smile grew, and she turned her face toward him. "I'm so lucky to have you. I can't imagine a world where I don't have you by my side." They stopped at a spot where the waves gently kissed the shore, and Alexander took Chloe's hand, pulling it to his lips. "The feeling is mutual," he whispered. "You've taught me what true strength looks like." The sun finally dipped beneath the horizon, leaving a trail of vibrant colors in the sky. For that brief, fleeting moment, the world around them seemed to pause, the vastness of the ocean offering a quiet reminder of the resilience they had found within each other. Despite the trials they faced, their love had only deepened, and in that moment, they realized that they were not just surviving, they were thriving. As the stars began to appear in the night sky, they sat quietly, side by side, knowing that this trip, this moment, was only the beginning of many more beautiful chapters to come. Their love had grown in ways neither of them had anticipated, and they were ready to face whatever challenges the future held together. Chloe and Alexander stood at the front of the auditorium, the soft murmur of the crowd settling as they prepared to give their presentation. The room was filled with a diverse group of people, some in wheelchairs, others with visible or invisible disabilities, all gathered together with a shared purpose: to learn about the strides being made in accessibility. It wasn't just another talk. It was a celebration of how far they'd come. As Alexander adjusted the microphone, Chloe looked out at the crowd. Their shared journey had been long and challenging, but today, It felt like the culmination of years of effort, passion, and love. It wasn't just about making spaces more accessible. It was about creating a world that celebrated inclusivity in every form. The lights dimmed slightly as they began their presentation, each slide showcasing their work. New ramps in old buildings, software that helped those with visual impairments navigate digital spaces, and a public campaign that advocated for more accessible public transportation. They shared the struggles they had faced in designing these solutions, the moments when it felt like the world wasn't ready, and how they pushed through with the conviction that accessibility wasn't a luxury, it was a right. Then, towards the end of their talk, a woman in the audience raised her hand. She had short cropped hair and a smile that seemed to shine despite the visible challenges she faced. Her name was Maria, and she had come to thank them. Standing up with the help of a cane, she spoke softly, yet her voice carried an undeniable strength. "I'm Maria," she began, her eyes scanning the crowd before focusing on Chloe and Alexander. "I've been using a wheelchair for most of my life. I've faced barriers literal and metaphorical every single day. But I want to thank you both. I've seen your work, I've experienced the changes you've brought into my community, and it's made such a difference in my life. The ramps, the accessible apps, even the way people now talk about accessibility, it's all because of people like you. You've made my world a little bit more open, a little bit more mine." Chloe's heart swelled as she locked eyes with Alexander. She could see the pride and emotion reflected in his gaze too. This was more than just a project. It had become a movement, a shared mission that connected them to people like Maria. Maria paused for a moment before continuing. "You see, it's not just about physical access," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "It's about emotional access too. I used to feel invisible, like my struggles weren't even acknowledged. But now, when I see people like you fighting for change, it makes me feel seen. And that's a gift more valuable than anything." The audience fell silent, the impact of her words settling into everyone's hearts. It was as if the room collectively understood the power of what Chloe and Alexander had done, not just to improve the physical world, but to offer a new sense of belonging and dignity to people with disabilities. After a moment of stillness, Alexander stood up. He spoke with a quiet but confident voice. "Thank you, Maria. And thank you to all of you. We didn't do this alone. This is a journey we've all been on together. We've learned so much from you, and we're not done yet. This is just the beginning." Chloe nodded, her eyes misty. "We've always believed that love isn't just about overcoming physical obstacles. It's about the emotional strength to connect, to understand each other, and to work towards a world where everyone belongs. This," she gestured to the crowd, "is what we're fighting for." In that moment, something shifted. It was as though all the late nights, the sacrifices, the challenges, all the moments of doubt had led them to this. It wasn't just about designing ramps and apps. It was about creating a future where love, empathy, and understanding were the cornerstones of society. And as they stood there, hand in hand, they realized that the journey they'd started together wasn't just about changing the world, it was about changing themselves. Their bond had grown stronger with every step, not just because of the physical obstacles they had overcome, but because of the emotional depth they had nurtured. They looked at each other, a silent understanding passing between them. Their love was not just an anchor in the face of the world's difficulties, but a force that pushed them forward, side by side, towards a world where everyone could feel seen, heard, and valued. As they left the stage, the applause was overwhelming, but it was Maria's words that echoed in their hearts. They hadn't just made the world more accessible, they had made it more human. And that was a gift neither of them had ever anticipated, but both of them cherished beyond measure. As they sit side by side on their couch, the soft light of the setting sun spilling through the window, they hold hands, comfortable in the silence for a few moments. Their shared journey, with all its highs and lows, feels like a beautiful tapestry woven from memories, laughter, tears, and victories. The soft hum of their apartment is a gentle reminder of the peaceful world they've created together. She leans her head on his shoulder, the weight of the day having melted away. "I never thought I'd find someone who truly gets it. You make everything seem so much easier," she murmurs. He chuckles softly, squeezing her hand. "You've taught me just as much, you know." I think we balance each other out perfectly. They exchange a warm, knowing glance. It wasn't always easy. There were moments of doubt, frustration, and even fear of the unknown. But they had learned to communicate, to support each other, and to grow stronger through every challenge they faced. Each obstacle had been an opportunity to deepen their bond, to show each other that love was not just a feeling, but a constant action, a decision to keep moving forward together. I was thinking about what we talked about earlier, she begins, looking thoughtful. About maybe expanding our family someday. It's scary to think about, especially with everything we still want to do, but I think it could be a beautiful journey. We'd be a team, just like always. He nods, his voice full of warmth and confidence. I think we're ready. And if we aren't, we'll figure it out together. Just like we always have. They both laugh, the ease of their shared understanding a testament to how far they've come. Their conversation then shifts toward their advocacy work, a cause close to both their hearts. They had spent countless hours fighting for accessibility and inclusion, pushing for a world where everyone, no matter their circumstances, could live fully and without barriers. There's so much more to be done, she says, her eyes lighting up with passion. We can take it to the next level. Maybe start a foundation. I want to make sure people don't have to fight as hard as we did. He nods enthusiastically. We've come this far, and I know we can do even more. There's a whole community out there waiting for the change we can bring. Their excitement bubbles up, a vision of the future unfolding before them. It's not just about their personal life, it's about leaving a legacy, a life of purpose. A life where every step forward, no matter how small, makes the world a little more inclusive, a little more compassionate. As the evening deepens, they make plans. Not just for their family, not just for their future, but for the future of others who still need help finding their place in a world that too often forgets them. We're just getting started, he says with a smile. She smiles back, her heart full. Yeah, we are. And so, as they sit together in the quiet comfort of their apartment, surrounded by the hope and promise of tomorrow, they know that whatever the future holds, they will face it hand in hand, with strength, love, and a shared vision of possibility. The challenges may come, but so will the triumphs, and together, they will always find a way.